you have to be an expert at the craft, the thing that is it that you do, but now you have a million of other things hitting you from all angles,
The learning
right?
curve is huge.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the AbadAss Live channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Abad. I'm your host. This channel is all about bringing you experts or people that are becoming experts on their field to give you the tips, tricks, and hacks that you need to start crafting your own badass life. And we do that by sitting down with amazing people. And today we have a very special episode because we have someone who is not only an expert in their field, but she's an amazing human being. She's helped myself and my wife so much. Cindy Lombard, thank you so much for being with us today.
You are very welcome, and I'm happy to be here. I'm glad you invited me.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think ever since I met you, I was fascinated talking to you because you have so much knowledge. You've been in your field for over 30 years. You know, you have your own practice, and you know, you've helped my wife and I so much with our health. You know, after coming to see you just a couple of times, I felt so much better. So this was just had to happen because I feel like you have so much to share and it's so valuable for our audience. So just to give the audience a little bit of context, just tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you come from, who is Cindy Lombard, you know, how'd you ended up here in Ocala, all that good stuff.
We'll keep the story short, I promise, because that could get kind of long, but I actually am a farm girl. I grew up in Oregon. Fast forward, I finished my Bachelor of Science in Nursing down in West Palm Beach, and initially in my career, I was a high-risk labor and delivery nurse for a long time. Then we ended up moving to Ocala for various reasons, and we'll skip that part too. And then I ended up feeling like I could do better if I went ahead to go to grad school. So I graduated from Georgetown and became a women's health and nurse practitioner. I worked for several years learning more in the primary care, the chronic care, and that type of field, and then went, you know what, I think I'm going to jump off the cliff, and I think I'm going to go out on my own after Florida granted nurse practitioners the ability to be autonomous. So I applied for my autonomous license. I am now an autonomous nurse practitioner, and I've been going at it on my own office now for going on 2 years.
Awesome, awesome. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
You know, it's so like nerve-wracking to take the leap of, you know, the entrepreneurial route, because now it's not only you have to be an expert at the craft or the thing that is it that you do, but now you have like a million of other things hitting you from all angles,
The learning
right?
curve is huge.
So yes, there's so many hats that you have to wear as a new business owner. But I'm really glad that you did, because it's not only for yourself to be fulfilled, but you're helping so many people. It's really, you know, a place that I believe it has had a huge impact on the community. I mean, just from seeing Jen to being so happy, you know, ever since like he's been, you know, coming to see you, it's really been life-changing. So thank you so much on behalf of myself and the entire community. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate everything that you do. But I think that today you have like so much to tell us, especially because for me at least, health is one of the most important things, right? Like if we're not healthy, almost any other achievement doesn't really matter, is not as impactful. And sometimes we as humans tend to do things backwards or just derail from like you know, the path, or even follow the path that we think it's the one that we want to follow, and then we realize too late that we traded our health for wealth and, you know, like just financial stuff, and then we kind of end up spending the wealth to get back into health. So it's just like, what are some advice that you can give us to kind of like stay proactive about our health, to make sure that, you know, we are just conscious about it and we don't just leave it aside?
I like what you said, because it is being conscious about it. So I appreciate that word. And it's difficult for us to remain conscious of it all the time. It takes practice to be conscious. What we eat and how much exercise and how much time we spend outside, those are critical aspects to our health. Being outside also is critical to the amount of sleep that we get. The food that we take in, is it going to support the GI? Is it going to cause an inflammatory process in the GI, which then causes certain nutrients not to be uptaken? What about those nutrients and how can we correct those deficits? Do we even have any deficits? People wander around just on the vitamin D alone, Andrew. Most people don't know that they're severely, and I'm saying severely, deficient in vitamin D. Almost every single patient that I have comes in has a severe vitamin D deficiency. Just that nutrient alone is shocking.
Is there a particular reason for that, or is that just something that like humans in general lack because we don't get exposed to it, or we don't consume
exactly
enough of it?
And nowadays we don't spend that much time outside. The sun is what gets us the vitamin D. Now we have an incredible amount of use of the sun protective formulas and all of those sunscreens, and we aren't absorbing the vitamin D. Vitamin D, for a lot of people, they don't realize vitamin D, we call it vitamin D, it's actually acts as a hormone in the body. So when that's low, your sleep isn't working well, your brain isn't working well, your GI isn't working well. Number one reason for depression and anxiety could be your vitamin D level is too low.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know that. They'll go to their primary care provider, whoever it is within their network of insurance, and they're going to offer them the SSRI, the benzodiazepines, the whatever, instead of checking, and not all providers do this, but check the vitamin D level. It could be something as simple as that.
See, can you clarify this for me? Because this is something that I heard that I'm not quite sure. I haven't fact checked that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that majority of the medication that it's normally prescribed and given for depression and stuff like that, what it does is basically rations the chemical that you're lacking of when you're depressed, like the one that you're not getting enough of. I don't know if it's serotonin or what's the other.
There's serotonin, there's GABA, there's lots of dopamine is in there. There's several of them. Now, you have to understand, when we're going into psychology and psychiatry, a lot of that is based not necessarily on research. It's based on what they think is going on. Serotonin is a really good example of this. We know that serotonin is used in the brain, but a lot of people don't understand serotonin is critical to GI function. It's critical to your platelet function as far as blood coagulation goes. There's a huge play in that. How it actually helps with depression, with anxiety, not really known. But we do know that if you improve the diet, because then you throw in the insulin piece on this, then insulin and the interplay with serotonin, then we go off into a whole other rabbit hole that it's probably due to GI inflammatory response as well as something going on with the insulin in the body. So
correct.
There's stuff that's huge rabbit holes.
So in your experience, to just go really deep down as the root cause of most illnesses, I would say, or I would think that it really the vast majority, for not say almost all of it just really boils down to a lot of our intake, our food intake.
It does.
And what you said, how much we're outside and all that stuff. But our food intake, especially nowadays, it was a lot easier 100 years ago, 200 years ago, when we lived in small tribes, everything came directly from the earth. Now we're dealing with, especially here in the States, where everything that is terrible for us is just so much more, it's so much easier, it's so much more accessible, and almost everything is processed, almost everything has tons of sugar. And based on not necessarily research, but a lot of the people that I follow, and I've been trying to be a little bit more proactive with my own health, because I want to make sure that people see that I'm trying to just, like walk the talk, right? And not just
Exactly.
simply telling them, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this. In my personal life, I love exercising. A lot of the times I fall off the wagon because like I'm really busy with work and this
And your
and
chest
that.
is looking good. I'm just going to throw that in
Thanks,
there. You can tell.
appreciate it. But no, like I've actually been like off the wagon for a while, and I'm like extremely like goal driven, which is terrible when it comes to like health, because like for example, if I want to go to the gym and lose X amount of pounds, I go all out cycle, I do it, and then I fall off the wagon again. And I've done that cycle so many times. And so for me now it's just like really, really focusing into changing that goal driven framework into like more of a lifestyle and how to sustain
Correct.
it, right? But what I was saying is like, what are like some healthier alternatives for people that are on the hustle and bustle of like work and life and all this stuff, for something that it could be more sustainable for us to like change the way that we're eating now, right? Because like what we put in our body is basically like our gas, and now like we're all
Right.
like just wondering is like, why are we all sick? Like why the US is like the leading country in the world per se, right? That's what we've been told. That's what, even me, I grew up in Ecuador and like we thought that. So you would think the people here should be healthier than in other countries. And it doesn't seem to be the case, right?
You are correct. What I have found is to get real change is always going to take work. If people are looking for a specific, easy way to get to point B from point A, there's not necessarily an easy way. One of the best ways, one, write down everything that you eat. Not to share with me, I do look through food diaries and things. It's not that I never do. But if you write it down, you have to deal with it. So that is a good way where you acknowledge to yourself that you did eat those Cheetos, that whatever you ate.
Man.
Second of all, life-changing thing that I did for myself, which does take a little bit of work, but it is less work and it's also less money, is I food prep almost every single Sunday. I prep the food. It's there. It is some work on Sunday. You do have to give up a few hours on Sunday, and it can be an hour or two to even,
Yeah,
longer.
based on what you do.
But it depends on what you're planning for that week. If you meal plan and have it all ready, and you're not busting your ass to get the kids out the door and getting to work on time, and then you order out from the Uber Eats and they deliver you this because you're in a moment of, I just want to eat. Get that hard part done. It's still a few hours of time, but it's still hours that you gain later on through the week. I would recommend food prepping.
Are there like any type of like superfoods that you would like recommend? Because like, for example, I know that sometimes like, and I guess it depends really what you're trying to optimize for, right? Like there's like many like layers of how healthy you really want to be. Like if it's just simple weight loss, there's so many different variables. Because I was, remember that I told you when I was doing carnivore, it wasn't just like for me the weight loss. It was how much energy it gave me, like allegedly, I don't know for sure, but how good it is at a molecular level, how it starts regenerating a lot of things within your body. And so like I did feel amazing. As most of you guys know, I'm a poker player, so the summer came around, I had to go to Vegas for the World Series, and then it was just so hard to stay on track. But are there like any just superfoods that are like great in general for everybody?
We know that there are people out there that do very well on carnivore. We know that there are people that do very well on the ketogenic and the low carb diet. I advocate for a lot of that because it gets the sugar out of the diet. When we're dealing with substances such as sugar, and especially here in the United States with the high fructose corn syrup, those are dangerous substances. And people are not in the know to understand that we're feeding infants and our children high fructose corn syrup. That should never be given. It should never be consumed. But we have been encultured to grab things off the shelf, and it says healthy, it says low fat, it says all these different things. And we just assume without actually reading the labels. And that's always a dangerous situation. When you stick with your foods that are your fruits and your vegetables and melons and berries,
just whole foods,
eating your
basically,
right, going around, of course, eating yogurt and getting the lactobacillus in and keeping your GI balanced with the good bacteria. Those are really your best options. Are you going to want to have a craving? And because people who know me know I really like a good Dorito, I'm not going to lie. I don't eat them, but there are times that I'm like, damn.
I think sometimes too, just like being intentional about like not doing it as often, conscious, right? Like if you're used to you just completely eating total junk 7 days a week, just start taking things off little by little, right? Like Jen and I, or at least myself, like I tend to be a psycho and just drop everything, and then it lasts for like a few months, and then I get right back on it. And so like it's very hard to sustain when you do it. Just like try to like, you know, willpower your way through everything.
But Andrew, I think that's where meal prepping comes in with that, because if you had whoever at their office or whatever, if you had that container of cheese and blueberries are in there, you'd forego the whatever
for sure
thing.
Like I can eat anything that's in front of me. Like I like if it's in front of me, I don't go out of my way to search for bad food. It's just like really hard when there's nothing in front of you and you have access to all this stuff that looks amazing. It's going the extra step of like going to look for the healthiest stuff is what I don't do. So like if I do plan ahead and I do put in front of me like the good stuff that I gotta eat, I will probably, me personally, I will do it more for sure.
It just makes the choices a little bit easier.
I follow like a couple people online that give, you know, advice that I like tend to believe them. And like there's one thing that jumped at me that I thought it was like very interested that about folic acid, that we're not like our body, right, is not designed to break it up, or like, you know, there's like an X amount of percentage of the population that a gene mutation, right? That because like Jen and I sometimes think it's like, okay, like the little guy is starting to act like a certain way, right? And it's like, okay, maybe we have to be more intentional about like looking for those things that we're feeding him, because, you know, we want to make sure that we are very, very, I keep saying the word, I don't want to, and it sounds redundant, but very intentional what we feed him, right? Like, so I've heard now, and I've done a bunch of research on this, and just feeding, especially kids, foods that are enriched with folic acid makes them, you know, be like, there's a change of behavior. There's a bunch of kids nowadays that are being diagnosed with ADHD because of it. And I honestly believe that. Can you speak on that a little bit?
We know that in excess of 60% of the population is going to test positive for the MTHFR gene, which means they're not able to methylate B12, which is easily overcome. I have patients who are come in and they're like, I really think that maybe I should be tested to see if I'm a carrier for the MTHFR gene. And I'm like, why don't we just assume that you are, because over 60% of the population is, and just take methylated B vitamins. And it makes things so much easier, because getting a DNA test is expensive. Methylated B12s can be taken by anybody. Just make sure that you're taking the methylated.
And there's no downside to it, right?
No, it's just taken down another step to be more usable by the small intestine. But then that also brings in, again, when I was talking about inflammation in the gut, we have all of this stomach acid that's supposed to break down your food into these components that then get shuffled into the small intestine. The small intestine is there to absorb all of the nutrients, distribute it out where it needs to, put it through the liver to metabolize, and it's responsible for all these things. if it's not broken down properly in the stomach, then it just gets shoved on through. It's like they don't know what it is, so it gets pushed on through and it never gets absorbed and used. So making sure that we do what we can to keep a nice, calm microbiome and not inflamed is a huge piece of the puzzle. It is a fact, and we know this now, that chronic disease is always caused by inflammation. So we got to keep that in mind. And that's a huge rabbit hole that if we ran down there, we'd be here for another 7 hours. But chronic disease is caused by inflammation. Your cancers are caused by inflammation. Your hypothyroid is caused by inflammation. There's all these little pieces that come together that do begin in the gastrointestinal system. And nowadays, with these last 3-4 generations of children, we have exposed them to an enormous amount of microplastics and BPA and high fructose corn syrup and the colors and the dyes that are in food, an enormous amount that happened even before they were born.
Yeah.
Now we have to focus on counteracting that.
And and just being conscious about what we're feeding ourselves and our kids, right? Like that's something that, I mean, like all these, big companies, I mean, they're not going to invest into making food better for us. They're going to invest into getting us hooked in whatever food so they can sell more and they can make more money, and that's all they care about. And so, like, if we are not the ones who take the time, that research, that look at the labels, that do all this stuff, and I think like they make the labels complicated for that same reasons. For like the average person doesn't really realize. For example, one thing that I noticed, like a lot of the things that said enriched with, is that you would think that enriched sounds like this sounds like it's good for me. Yeah, and it's not necessarily it's not necessarily the case, right?
There is actually am I allowed to talk about an app?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't want to. I actually encourage my patients to use an app called Yucca. It's YUKA. It is this app, and when you're grocery shopping, you can scan stuff, and it grades food. I don't always agree with what Yucca says, but I agree with a lot of what they say. But one of the most important things is it will tell you, oh, this has a lot of these kind of chemicals that have been known to cause this. It has this dye in it. It has this much sugar in it. It makes you aware, and it's as easy as using your phone and you scan something.
Just scan it, see.
So a lot of my patients use the Yucca app. You can actually even use it on cosmetics, because a lot of us women don't understand the intense amount of endocrine disruptors that is in your mascara is outrageous. I had no idea. So paying attention to the lotions that you put on. Well, Jen can tell you, we now have a line at our office that is all chemical-free fragrances and lotions, because people don't understand a lot of that stuff that we're putting on our skin absorbed stuff, is actually an endocrine disruptor. So we're trying to really veer away from that. So and make women more aware of hypothyroid is a real thing, and it's not your fault that you have it, but you've been exposed to this lineup of chemicals that has caused this to happen. So not that there's not some genetic component to make you predisposed, but let's not add to it, people, please,
And so, like, when you started your own practice, like, I've noticed that you don't necessarily do things the way everybody does it. Like, you do things your way, and I think, like, it works better it's patient-driven, right? Like, you want to be, like, the best. Like, and I know that you do a lot of, like, bioidentical stuff. Like, obviously, I'm not an expert at this, I don't know. But, like, what's the advantage of using those methods or doing that instead of, like, the regular way where most...
First off, we can't say that there's a regular when it comes to bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. We can take this all the way back to the 1930s. We knew what normal levels for men for their testosterone levels back then in the 1930s was anywhere between 800 and 1,000. We knew that that was a normal range for men going on 100 years ago. We actually started giving women a little bit of testosterone back in the 30s, and we actually knew, oh, they feel better. And that part of it pretty much dropped off. Fast forward, the latest research that I can find, they now put normal testosterone for men is somewhere around 400. So we've moved the goalposts in dramatically when it comes to what's normal for men. We now know, because of all of the testing and the research, we had the Women's Health Initiative back in the early 2000s. We now know that that was a completely skewed research study that didn't apply to the population. They put out all of these things that, oh, it causes higher rates of cardiovascular events, it causes higher rates of breast cancer. More than 60% of the people that were in the study of these women had elevated BMIs, smoked cigarettes. So it was all this skewed testing that was like, oh, look, they had a heart attack.
Right.
Well, they were overweight and they smoked, which will cause you a heart attack right there. Fast forward to, we have real research now that, guess what? Women who start on HRT and actually get their estradiol have much lower rates of a cardiovascular event. The Journal of American Medical Association just put out that women who are on HRT have lower rates of colon cancer. So we've had to back up. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody in the studies is ever going to apologize to us women, but we have had a turnaround of, wait a minute. Let's get these women on HRT. It is beneficial. Let's get them healthier. I do veer over to the bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I believe that there's benefits to it being bioidentical. There are some physicians out there who would disagree with me, which is fine. We all approach things differently, and I don't have a problem with that. But I know from my patients that getting on board a little bit of estrogen, progesterone, when I do my menopause seminars, these are all beneficial to mood, to health, to bone, to brain, to the heart. It is all very beneficial to our performance, to our not breaking a hip, depending on a lot of things that women don't realize is estrogen and testosterone are so beneficial to maintaining the bone health. If you look at the statistics, depending on what decade of life you are in post-menopause, women have a 30 to 70% chance of dying within the first year after a hip fracture. Those are real numbers. We can't get away from them. Those are real numbers. If we support women and, again, not wait until they have osteoporosis or even osteopenia, let's start treating them before so that it just never happens, so that it's just never a consideration. We don't have to. Let's be proactive, like what you were saying. We know that testosterone, smooth muscle relaxer. Women who have their testosterone optimized have lower blood pressure, have lower cardiovascular events. And before any women out there start, I'm not talking about testosterone levels that are boy levels. I'm talking a little nudge of testosterone.
What's the organ on our body, whether it's an organ or anything else, that is in charge of producing testosterone?
In men, that's mainly going to be the gonads, but the adrenals also play a role in that as well.
Because if you would have told me about the studies that they did, right? Like what would have been, like, I don't know, 100 years ago or whatever, that men average was between 100 and 1,000.
800 and 1,000, yes.
Correct, 800 and 1,000, and now it's all the way down to like 400. That to me would make sense because, at least the way I would think about it is like, even if you take it, 1,000 years ago with cavemen, like I think like you're more active, you have to, you're always on alert, all that stuff.
Yes.
Like those numbers probably were like way higher, right?
I would be curious about
and
those.
So like
absolutely.
now, like the stuff that we're eating, the sedentary lives that we're living, like there's so many things. So like that number is probably going to continue decreasing, right? And the average is going to be like way, way lower, not because we're meant to have those numbers, but because that's just becoming the new normal.
Because that's what's happening.
Because what's happening, correct.
Right.
So,
and that's the disappointing thing is you already know I also take care of men in my clinic also, and a lot of times my men are coming in as patients because the wives are like, whoa, go get checked.
yeah.
But when it comes, you were asking about the hormone cascade, and a lot of people don't know that hormones start out as pregnenolone, which becomes progesterone, which then becomes testosterone, which then becomes estrogen. So there's kind of a what they call an aromatase of hormones that come on down. What people don't realize is if you have low testosterone, have you heard of the hormone oxytocin? A lot of people know about oxytocin as far as women because that's what helps them get uterine contractions to go into labor. That's what helps let down when we're breastfeeding, things like that. Men also have oxytocin. If you remember the first time you held your son skin to skin and that huge rush that you got, that's a normal response. That doesn't happen if you don't have normal testosterone levels. Oxytocin is dependent on appropriate testosterone levels. So the men and women out there who have the low libidos, don't feel connected to their partner, don't feel connected to their children or other family members, that can also be a lead-in because oxytocin is so important for us to be able to make those human connections. A lot of people don't realize the importance of that.
Correct. Yeah. And we were talking, before we started the podcast, and we were talking about how, for whatever reason, like, I guess the infrastructure of this country and different countries are different, right? Which is why for, the way it is, like, we don't have a lot of preventive measures in here. As opposed to, I don't know very well about the healthcare system in other countries. I do know that in Ecuador, I saw a study, the numbers were actually skewed for Ecuador as far as like the health-wise of the massive population. We're like a tiny country, and it's a third world country, but people seem to be healthier, right? And like you said, I think it's because there are some of those countries who don't have the infrastructure to wait and see what happens, and we kind of have to treat, and be more conscious about preventing a lot of these issues, right? Because we can't do a bunch of open heart surgeries or can't do all this stuff, right? Can you talk to us a little bit more about that? If you're an expert on any field or a successful entrepreneur who wants to be featured in our podcast,
I loved it.
Make sure you click the link below, fill out the application, tell us a little bit about yourself. If we're a good fit, somebody from our team will reach out to you.
What's up? What's up? Hey, what's up? What's up?
And you need to get ready to start inspiring our audience and become a part of the AbadAss Life podcast. I'll see you soon.
I don't want to get in trouble for some of the stuff that I say, but in the United States, there are providers out there that, of course, are more proactive leaning, and I agree with those. But when it comes to a lot of the way that things are done in this country, everything is based on a reactive side of medicine. They're going to wait until you get sick. They're going to wait until you have a heart attack. They're going to wait until you get that cancer. They're going to wait. When in other countries, because of the different way their healthcare delivery system is set up, they are in a position where they have to be more proactive because their countries can't afford, the open heart surgeries with the ICU and the ventilators and the chemotherapies, and that they can't afford to do that. So it benefits them to be more proactive. When we go to other countries, and I know you travel too, the food tastes different. When I was in Greece, the food is completely different tasting. It's not the same. When I had one of my grandsons with me when we were in Ireland, and he's like, Mimi, this cake doesn't taste right because there's no high fructose corn syrup in it, so it's not as sweet. So a lot of those things really lend itself to better health. Eating locally in Ecuador, they eat locally.
Yeah, and that's one thing,
They don't have the big food manufacturer.
I'm a huge foodie, right? Huge
You
foodie,
are.
especially when I go to Ecuador. I love food. And so I go there, I eat like crazy. I literally like just wait until like I'm a little bit hungry again, so I have an excuse to go and eat more.
I
Just because
agree.
normally I don't have a lot of time, and so like I only go for like a week or a few days or whatever. There's been times where I flew down there for a weekend just to go eat because the food is so
I
good,
agree.
right? And normally I think like, oh, I'm gonna come back and I probably gained like 10 pounds. I come back and I have lost weight.
Correct.
And it just blows my mind. Like,
Correct.
it's crazy. Even like the chains are different there. Like McDonald's, even McDonald's is different. It's so crazy to me. And like recently I was seeing some studies also, well, I think it wasn't studies, but there was research into like the same companies, Coca-Cola, a lot of these big companies, the amount of sugar that they have in the products here in the US versus the same product in the UK,
Those
in
studies have been
Australia.
done, yes.
And it's like not
It's
even a
completely
third
different.
of the amount of sugar that is here in the States.
It's completely different.
It's brutal to think about.
And what they allow in the food is completely different. So you are correct. Another fact that people need to be aware of is the fact that here in the United States, for the past 25 years, average caloric intake has actually stayed the same. Obesity has risen by 33%. So just with that little piece, again, that's another really deep rabbit hole to go down, but it needs to be investigated. If we're eating the same amount on average calories, how is it that we've gotten even more obese than
And
we were 20?
33% is a high,
That's a
high
huge number.
Is a huge
It's a
number.
huge number. We used to refer to type 2, and this is back when I started my career, we refer to type 2 diabetes as adult onset diabetes. We don't refer to that way anymore. It's type 2 diabetes because we have children being diagnosed with it. Children.
Wow.
We have children now. It's horrible.
That's insane.
It is.
Yeah, I have been all throughout my 20s. I didn't care much about my health, right? I've been, and I'm open and honest about it because it's just like, you're young, you don't really seem to feel much. Like, thankfully, I've been blessed that I've been, fairly healthy. I've never had a surgery.
And you learned.
And so like I never really took any time to think about, what is going to happen once I start getting a little bit older. And then now it's just like, trying to live an intentional life. Health is something that just like really jumps up as like the first thing. And which is why like I'm so happy that I was able to have you here just to like listen to all the knowledge that you have, all the things that we can do to implement like, high intentionality in our lives when it comes to our health. And not just for me, but, for all the people out there. This stuff is powerful. This stuff is things that can really change, if more people were talking about it. And I think that now is starting to happen where like more and more people are just getting sick and tired of feeling the way, we're feeling.
Right.
Feeling stagnant, feeling like we are just dragging, like our feet, and like basically we're being poisoned. And more people are talking about it, and I'm like really happy. That's just who I am. I will jump in that bandwagon, and I don't care if my channel gets shut down. Like I will go and try to yell it as loud as I can. Anyway,
and we need to.
Because it's just like unreal to think that this is being done purposely. It's not like it's like, oops, like we didn't know. It's just being done purposely to the masses for profit, right?
Correct.
And I am in no way, shape, or form of people making money, but not at the expense of killing like hundreds of thousands or probably millions and millions of people, right? So in whatever little platform that I have, I'm going to do my best to continue talking about this. Hopefully, if you have the time, we'll have you here multiple times to just have, maybe a series of more like detailed topics of how to tackle certain things, of how to, how to counter like certain specific illnesses or issues that a lot of people are, having to deal with now. And yeah, I think that would be great. So I'm going to hold you to that.
I would love that. There's lots of rabbit holes we could dive down together.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked about how like you ended up in Ocala. Now, tell us a little bit more about like Essential Woman. How, how's things going there? I know that, there's more and more people knowing you here locally. I've been doing my best to like everybody that I, bumped into that they, need health services to, send them your way. Because I think like honestly, I haven't gone to a lot of doctors per se because you know me, like it takes a village to make me take an Advil. But when I went to you, I think like you were just so good. And I'm not just saying this because you're here. You were just so good, and you can tell that you have a passion for helping people and for, telling it how it is and making sure that they do their best to better themselves and keep, in touch with their health and all this good stuff. So tell us how many more people are finding you and
Essential Woman is grown. This is my second trackable year. So we have definitely grown. We're growing every single day. For those of us that don't know me, I am board certified in women's and reproductive health. So the other thing that we didn't touch on, which is another rabbit hole, is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and PCOS is a huge affliction that is growing and inflicting infertility on women more and more every year. So that's another angle as far as infertility that I've gone into. We do, again, we've already talked about the hormone replacement. We do weight loss. We do IV therapy. IV therapy we don't do as much because people come in for the nutrient injections and it's much faster. They'd rather just have an injection of the same thing and go on to work or whatever. They come in like they do for Dunkin' Donuts, only they come into my office for that. I do full scope obstetrics and prenatal care. We have all of those done. For me, again, I don't take insurance, but at our office, we really cater to what I can only call luxury prenatal care. When you come to me, you get that VIP scheduling. It is in-house ultrasounds, in-house labs drawn. Jen Schuler with Rejuvenate. You know Jen.
She's amazing. Shout out
She
to
is
Jen.
absolutely amazing. She is in charge of all of our prenatal massages. I know Jen is a huge fan of her prenatal massages when she needed them. But people don't realize that the women that I have surrounded myself with are top of their game, Jen Schuler being one of them. I've surrounded myself with very strong, highly skilled women. So that obstetrics piece, when you come in for a prenatal visit, you're getting a prenatal massage, you're getting a prenatal facial that is organic, no chemicals and things, so you can continue on in those things to get you through pregnancy in as much comfort as possible when you're gestating a human. I mean, it's hard work, but we make it easier, and I'm just really proud of that. You don't have to go and sit in chairs and wait for upwards of 2 hours to go and see the provider for 5 minutes and be shuffled then on out again, wait for your next appointment and over and over. When you come into us for gynecology, it's the same thing. It is luxury gynecology care. I will personally call you with your lab results. You don't have to worry about, oh, I hope everything turns out, and wait all the way until your next appointment. I personally call you to let you know there's this every single time when a lab comes in. Same with the ultrasounds. When the hard read from the radiologist comes in, I personally call you myself to let you know what was reported. There's no waiting until your next appointment, sitting on the phone on hold for forever. I would never allow that to happen.
I can attest to that. Every time I've been there, I know I've met your entire team. You have a rock star team. They're all A players, and the waiting, that's something that I've always had that question, and I always make fun of it with Jen because like, you go to normally to doctor's offices and you have an appointment. Like they make you make an appointment and then you end up waiting 2 hours anyway. So it's like, I understand that sometimes, there's a little bit more that they couldn't like foreseen that, they're taking care of patients, all that good stuff. But like, there is a way to do things efficiently. Like if you know that like your average visit with a patient is 20 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever. Just plan accordingly, give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, and actually stick to like whatever the schedule is, right? Because what's the point of making appointments if you're gonna have to just wait in 3
Wait
hours
for the 2
and
hours,
however long
exactly.
anyway?
All of my appointments are booked 60 minutes apart. Everyone who comes in to see me knows I don't rush. We go back into my exam room and we talk. I am not discussing things with you through the laptop or anything like that. I still, to this day, because I'm old, I hand write all of my notes. I am talking to the patient. I am not sitting there typing on the laptop to make sure I have time to get my notes done. I'm not like that. I want to know why you're in my office. I want to know what led up to it, what you've done about it, what makes it better, what makes it worse. I need an hour. And sometimes people, when they just meet you for the first time, they need a couple of minutes to get to know you. So how about that lead-in time as well? Nobody takes that into consideration. I want my patients to trust me. Let's have a little small talk first. And then we'll lead in. It makes for a better interaction.
No, absolutely, and it gives you a better picture too, as as the expert. Because like if you start talking, we have a little bit of small talk. I'll tell you maybe like some of my bad habits, and then you can probably have a better notion of like, okay, maybe he's suffering of X because he's doing this, right? And if you don't have all the information, if you don't have the full picture, it makes it harder to treat and find the root causes, right? And
that's what I'm about, root cause.
That's something that we were talking about earlier. Also, is like we can't just like, or at least people in your field shouldn't just like try to supplement for the sake of supplementing and like giving things to people for the sake of just pushing them out. They should supplement for deficiency. They should find what's the root cause. Why is like their body not producing enough testosterone or producing enough whatever it is that they're lacking, as opposed to just try to slap a Band-Aid in it and so make you come back. You know what I mean? Like that's something that for me at least I'm a skeptic in almost every possible area. Like if it doesn't make sense to me, you're gonna have a hard time trying to like get me to get there, sell me the thing, whatever. Like it just has to make sense to me. And so based on that logic, a lot of the things sometimes don't make sense to me, especially when I go and start actually reading into it and learning what certain medications do and all of that stuff. There's this one medication I think I'm drawing a blank, that I think the US and maybe one other country are like the only two countries that is legal for people to take. I don't know if you
There's
know.
probably several medications related to that, yes.
And it's crazy, it's like if 99.9% of the world has said like, hey, this might be bad for people, you shouldn't allow people to take it, why are we still letting big pharma and people?
It happens all of the time. Medication, I'm saying this in general terms, medication should always be thought of with a modicum of danger. Tylenol actually is a very dangerous medication when you consider all of the different side effects associated with acetaminophen. When we talk about a medication such as Nexium and all of those proton pump inhibitors, we have the research now that extended use of proton pump inhibitors causes cancer. People will go over that limit and they'll take it every single day. Yeah, but I feel better, no heartburn. Ugh. Your stomach needs that hydrochloric acid to break down whatever it is you ate, and now you're nutrient deficient. Now you've caused an inflammatory process in your small intestines because of it.
Right.
You should always be cautious no matter what. And even supplements, Andrew, supplements, people will read up on the latest, oh, well, I should take that. Maybe let's do a little more research.
Yeah, and you don't know how was that made, what exactly has on it. It may very well be able to like help you with that one thing, but it might mess up 4 others, right?
Correct.
And so like I'm a huge proponent of like as natural as it can be.
Right.
It's better for you, right? And even if you don't see like results right away, or even if it doesn't stop, like I don't think I've ever taken a pain pill in my life. And I'm not saying that like as a way to like, oh, look at me, but it's just like I have like an unreasonable fear of medication for whatever reason. And I've been thinking, because I'm trying to track it, where did that come from, and it's not like I had a history of like any family member to abuse that or saw that in my parents or anything. It's just, I don't know, it just happened,
Wouldn't it come about maybe from enculturation? Because I think back, I was raised by hippies, okay? You already know, I was born in the 60s. I was raised on a farm. We had our own cows, our own chickens, the whole thing. I also grew up in the Pacific Northwest, which is a little bit different mentality. And I don't know what the culture is like necessarily in Ecuador, but when I grew up, the only doctor I was ever taken to was a chiropractor. Back when I grew up, chiropractors did primary care, they delivered babies, they did all of these things. I never went to the doctor if I had a stomach ache or whatever. There was always some herbal supplement of whatever that I was given. I never saw a doctor. That kind of mentality has really changed. So when I mentioned to certain people, like, go to a chiropractor here now that I'm on the East Coast, they're like, why would you send me to a bone cruncher? And I'm like, they don't crunch bones, that. The culture is completely different over here. So I think that might be a part of it as well.
Yeah, it for sure has something to do with it. And honestly, like, I'm glad that that's the way it is for me, because
I agree.
Like, I make it happen. Like, if I have a headache or whatever, like, I try to hydrate first. I try to think of like, okay, what's the reason? My body is telling me there's caffeine, something wrong.
You need a little bit of water. There's a
Correct.
root cause always. All you're going to do if you take the ibuprofen or the acetaminophen is get rid of the headache. But what caused the headache? Because you're just setting yourself up for another headache. Probably hydration. Maybe you need some magnesium. Maybe you need,
Right.
There's a bunch of reasons. Fix the problem.
Right. And that's the one thing that I want to emphasize, and I want to tell everybody out there is like, nobody's gonna do it for us. There's no doctor in the world. There's no there's nobody that is going to do it for us unless we are intentional about start learning what we put in our bodies, as far as food, as far as medication, as far as like anything that we ingest, we should be curious about. We should say like, okay, what is this? What is it made out of? Where did they make it? How long ago did they make it? Like, like all those things. And it seems like we take for granted. It's like, oh, somebody made it, it should be safe. Well, clearly it's not safe. There are like tons of other countries who have like probably banned a lot of medications, a lot of things that we are currently still taking here in the US and a couple other countries. And so like, it's not clearly it's safe. Like we have to do the research. We have to take the time in order to be able to be, start like taking, taking charge of our own health.
Taking ownership is what I was going to say.
Correct.
We have to take ownership, because the other thing that people don't realize is the fact that you get this one medication for hypertension. And the hypertension medications, by the way, are good. We need to control hypertension. I don't want anybody misconstruing. But in some cases, then that one medication is going to lead to the other medication, which it is very common for not just me, all of us providers across the board, where it seems like once somebody hits about the age of 60, they end up going from maybe one medication to 2 to 4 to 7.
Right.
And it's like, hold on. That whole interaction of all of those different chemicals, we can't be doing that to people.
Yeah.
So be what you said, be proactive about what you're swallowing.
Yeah, for sure. So if people want to come see you, how can they find you? You're on the socials, right? You're on Facebook,
social
Instagram.
Media. You can Google me. My website is myessentialwoman.com. I regularly upload. You can read all sorts of blogs that I write. Getting an appointment with me is easy. You just push the button. It's right there when the page comes up. That part is easy. Also at the website, very easy. If you have a question, Cindy, I was told that I have such and such. This is a vague question that I got asked earlier today. Ask me a question. I may not answer you like within 5 minutes, but at the end of the day, I go through all of those and I answer everybody's questions. They don't have to come in and see me. If you've got a question, which this one today was about polycystic ovarian syndrome, please ask me a question. If I can stop these girls from going to the TikTok and getting their education from there or sites like that, I'm more than happy. It might not be until the end of the day. I'm more than happy to ask a question. You've seen this on Facebook. The pregnant mom asks a question about a such and such. All these other moms then chime in with sometimes old wives' tale things that really shouldn't be practiced. Ask me the question. Go to my website. You can ask me a question. It might be at the end of the day. I don't care that you're seeing another provider. Continue to go. I understand people have insurance and they have to go to that specific provider that's in their network. I don't care. I will answer your question. It's not a big deal for me. I have zero problem with doing that. So
Thank you so
easily
much,
reachable.
Sandy. I
You are
appreciate
very
it.
welcome.
Thank you for helping me and Jen also. I know that you primarily do like women's health and stuff, but
healthy men are actually good for women. When you think about it in the long run, if we have good, healthy relationships, whether that's with our wives, our significant others, our children, that makes all of us better. So yes, I do practice reproductive health as well, because keeping you healthy makes Jen happy. So that's a good thing.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for coming in here today. Oh, I almost forgot. I don't want to throw a wrench here to you, and if you didn't think about it, I've made it a thing to ask a lot of my guests before we end the podcast, what's their favorite quote. If you have any favorite quote that you like and why, you can just take your time and think for a couple of minutes, and
I actually have one. A very good friend of mine brought this quote to my attention, and it has been reverberating in my brain. Apparently it is credited to W.C. Fields. I actually Googled this after this individual told me that. But the quote is, "It's not the names that people call me, it's the name that I answer to." And that was just so profound to me, because we all get caught up in, look, they're calling us that. Really? But what name do you answer to? And that is an important thing that we need to keep in mind, and also to teach to our children. We don't care what they call us, it's the name we answer to. So I'm thinking that I'm going to have that put up in my office as well.
That's awesome. That is very powerful and very true.
I found it very profound when I was told that. So yeah.
Absolutely. Do you have any closing statements, any other suggestions that you want to give to our audience out there for them to just be more proactive, or simply just to, be a little bit more active in their health journey? Is there any quick 1, 2, 3 suggestions?
I have found, do something this simple. Download the Yucca app, YUKA. And just the next time you go shopping, I want you to scan all of those things.
Know the barcodes, make sure.
Right, just scan that barcode and be more proactive in your decision making when it comes to what you're feeding yourself.
Main things to stay away from: sugars,
high fructose corn syrup. We also have to remember that all of that stuff in the center of the store is loaded with microplastics and BPA, and that's something we should always be conscious about. Is the microplastics are destroying the endocrine and our GI.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys have homework for you guys now, and start looking for microplastics, BPA. Try to stay away from sugars. Try to stay away from seed oils, or some that are also, right?
That was another rabbit hole that I didn't think we had time for.
We'll do a series. I'm gonna try to kidnap you a couple times and bring you in here and do a series of things to stay away from, things to lean into, for all diverse, different.
Exactly.
Right, because there's just so many variables. It's so hard to dive really deep into multiple subjects, and when we're limited on time. So
exactly.
So yeah, well, anyway, thank you so much again for being here with
You're
us. I
always
really
welcome.
appreciate it.
You know how much I love you. You are always welcome. You really are the best. People should be paying more attention to you because you do speak to what you believe in and you act on what you believe on, and people need to watch that.
That's like the entire creed of this podcast is just simply, I personally believe that for you to craft your own badass life or for you to have your ideal life, all you have to do is just like put 150% of your efforts and your resources to what you believe on.
I agree.
To your purpose. And
You
then
know what's
just,
funny? I was not planning on doing this. My own children think I've had this keychain for forever. And my children have always thought I was a badass. And now here I am on your pod show, but I've had this for forever. But I believe in being a badass and have for decades. I've believed in being a badass. And here you are showing up as a badass.
Thank you so much,
like
Cindy.
it.
I appreciate it. Hey guys, if you want to continue living your own badass life or at least getting some help to get the tips and tricks and hacks that you need to stay within that path, just click the like and subscribe button below. Also click the notification bell so whenever we drop another episode, you won't miss it. We're going to be dropping episodes every Wednesday at 4 p.m. So stay in touch and I'll see you guys next time.